In just the last 10 months, House Republicans have added over $1 trillion to the debt of the federal government. And now President Obama wants to add more. Back in August, Republicans had a chance to stop this by refusing to raise the debt ceiling. Instead, they caved, passing a law that automatically raises the debt ceiling whenever the president wishes. Now, some of those same Republicans are casting meaningless symbolic votes in opposition to the automatic increase in the debt limit, hoping the American people will notice their votes today, but not their votes in August. But your night watchman is always vigilant. On our website tonight, we will print the names of every Republican member of Congress that voted in favor of the debt deal in August and then cast a cowardly show vote in opposition tonight. Joining us now is a congressman who has always stood firm in his opposition to raising the debt ceiling. In fact, he's taken a major leadership role in it. Kansas Republican Congressman Tim Huelskamp. Congressman Huelskamp, it's a pleasure. Welcome back to Freedom Watch.
Thank you, Judge. Pleasure to join you.
All right, what is going on here? In a little while, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, Congressman, the House of Representatives will engage in what is essentially a meaningless vote, an up or down vote on the president's request to borrow another $1.2 trillion between now and Election Day. Unless they get 2/3, enough to override a presidential veto, the vote is almost a joke tonight, isn't it?
As you indicated, it's a symbolic vote. The decision was already made back in August. You had to have 2/3 of the House and Senate, and everybody in Washington knows the president's going to get another $1.2 trillion to spend. And for folks to claim otherwise, they're not being honest with the American people.
Are some of your Republican colleagues, I've called them cowards, but maybe some of them are having second thoughts. Can you tell me, are some of them having second thoughts after they've watched what's happened in Greece in the past 6 or 7 months? Are they saying, my God, that could happen here, and I permitted it by allowing the president to borrow money back in August? If we could go back to August, I might vote differently.
Well, I think a lot of them came back after their August recess and listened to people back home, and they got a real earful. But by then, it was too late, Judge. It had been set into motion to spend, first borrow $1.2 trillion, then to borrow another $1.2 trillion, and a lot of discussion and talk on the floor. But again, the decision was in August. We had the biggest leverage we're ever going to have on this president, was he had to have our vote to raise the debt limit. And that was the time we should have required a balanced budget amendment, the time to require some cuts, and we didn't get anything done. And I was disappointed. That's why I voted no.
You and I talked about this back in August. The Republicans would be a minority. Speaker Boehner would be Minority Leader Boehner, were it not for small government, constitutionally oriented Tea Party members of Congress like you. Why on earth did Republican leadership go along with the biggest spender the White House has ever seen back in August? What did they think they were gaining that would move the ball toward shrinking the government by letting the president grow the government with money the government doesn't even have?
Well, you assume some of them really want to shrink the government. They might want to maintain the level, but there's a lot of them that I really don't think want to roll back spending in Washington. They talk about it, but their votes don't show that. So we've held the line on spending, but when you had this massive increase under President Barack Obama, unless we roll it back, we can't catch up. We're going to be $16.4 trillion in debt at the end of this administration. It's unsustainable. Everybody in Washington knows that, but they're not actually voting that way to cut back spending and give us more liberty, roll back those regulations. They're just pouring money in there and just saying they seem satisfied with spending the same amount as last year, and that results in a $1 trillion+ deficit every year.
Do you think that some Republicans are going to try and trick the American people? Some of those who don't want to shrink the government will vote against the incremental borrowing later today.
Well, as we speak, the vote's taking place, but the president will still get his increase and has his increase once the Senate fails to act or whatever they do. Everybody knows that. The real question is going back to people at home and say, hey, I really tried, but we failed. But, there's a difference between actually trying and using every lever you have to roll back the power and scope of Washington. And I keep hearing about 1995 and 96. Back then there was only $5 trillion of debt. It's different today.
Right.
It is a shame we have to call China to determine whether we can borrow more money, and that's a national sovereignty issue, Judge.
Congressman Tim Huelskamp, no matter what we talk about, it's a pleasure to chat with you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Judge.